Good morning. Um, I apologize for my voice. I'll try to croak through this meeting the best I can. My name is Mark Kimball, and agenda item one is the call to order. It is 9:30 a.m. on March 28th, 2024. I call this meeting of the Citizens Clean Elections Commission to order. With that, we will take attendance. Commissioners, please identify yourselves for the record.
Good morning, Damian Miner.
Amy Chan.
I think we have Commissioner Tidla and Commissioner Payton also with us. Is that correct? You both appear to be on mute.
Yes, sir. Steve Tidler here. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Commissioner Tidla. Commissioner Payton, are you with us too? I see you appear to be on mute.
Galen Payton.
Thank you. We have all five commissioners present. Item two, possible discussion, possible action on minutes for the February 29th, 2024 meeting. Commissioners, you have the minutes from the February meeting in the packet. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to
Chan?
I'd like to move that we adopt the minutes as written.
Thank you, Commissioner Chan. We have a motion to adopt the minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Seconded by Commissioner Meyer. I will call the roll. Commissioner Chan,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Tidla,
Aye.
Commissioner Payton.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion to approve the minutes is approved unanimously. Item three is discussion possible action on the executive director's report. Tom?
Yes, thank you, commissioners, and thank you all for being here. I know all of you have a lot of different things going on, whether, obviously chairman's voice and other things. So I really appreciate you all making it here today. I think that's an important thing because I think it's important to reflect on the fact that this is an active board that manages the program that it administrates and has continued to do that month after month, even under circumstances that aren't always ideal. So I just want to thank you for being here. I'll try to get through the highlights of the report pretty quickly. The presidential preference election was on March 19th. The final canvass will be on April 4th. And so far, the unofficial turnout rate is 39, close to 40%. And then we'll have another local election on our on May 21st, 2024, and Alec will be doing the really intensive labor of making sure that our website is up to date for anybody who has an election, any local jurisdiction that has an election in that on that date. I wanted to highlight a couple of things in our voter education. I had the opportunity to go out and Gina and Avery obviously did the work of being at the Arizona Civics Coalition Civics Night at the museum at the Arizona an Arizona Historical Museum on College and Curry. I still can't quite get the name down, but it's a very beautiful facility, and there were lots of teachers, civics teachers from around the state, and our table there got a lot of visitors, and that's great. It's interesting. Last year, Avery was on a panel at the McCain Institute that involves some very high-profile national pollsters on youth voting, and so that continues to show he continues to generate media off of that through both internationally and then nationally through this interview he did with these students from Montclair State. And then Gina was a panelist on the follow-up to the ASU Pasteur Center's and the next installation of the ASU Pasteur Center's Diversifying Political Engagement series. And so that's available available to watch. I think that I have a couple of highlights I need to mention quickly on the legal front. So you'll note, just since this report was published, I'll just note that the Center for Arizona Policy versus Arizona Secretary of State, which is one of the Prop 211 cases. So they filed their notice of appeal on Monday, and then my understanding is that they then very quickly filed a motion to have their case transferred up to the state Supreme Court, along with where there is a motion pending in this case called Toma v. Fontes, where there is a motion to transfer that case from the Court of Appeals to the Arizona Supreme Court. The Toma v. Fontes case, the Court of Appeals yesterday issued a stay that was asked for by the plaintiffs to stay the plaintiff's lawsuit at the Superior Court level, pending the plaintiff's appeal from the denial of the plaintiff's motion for preliminary injunction. So for the lawyers on the call, that's kind of an odd procedural posture, but nevertheless, at this point, the Court of Appeals has granted that stay to the plaintiffs of the plaintiff's action. And then, of course, importantly, and lest I forget, last week the district court granted the commission and the other defendants a motion to dismiss Americans for Prosperity's claim against Prop 211. So a lot of action happening there. I believe that the Supreme Court will conference the motion to transfer in April at its conference, and then if things stay status quo, there would be an argument in the Toma case in the first week of May. There's obviously a lot of other court activity going on around the state involving elections. I don't want to spend too much time on that other than to say, please let us know if you need to know more about any of that. I wanted to, quickly, before I get into one other item, I wanted to, also, say, we've had, as we'll see in the forthcoming presentations today, we're doing a lot of work on the voter education front, and we're doing quite a bit of work on with candidates as we come into filing season. And so I also wanted to mention that what that has done is it meant that Paula has had a probably a bigger and more and different and a more diverse array of transactions to negotiate and get through for us as we get through this. As we launch our new debate program and the things that Gina will be talking to you about, and not to mention just maintaining the day-to-day operation of this meeting and these other things. So I wanted to make sure to acknowledge that it's been a very, the last 2 quarters for Paula have been probably as busy as they've been for some time. But I really appreciate that work on by her. And I also wanted to also say that I've had the opportunity to, just by being in the office and talking to some of the candidates, Mike handles so many candidate conversations on a day-to-day basis with candidates who are interested in running clean, candidates who have questions about campaign finance, candidates who have questions about the paper, just any number of things. And I can tell you from talking to the folks who call that the level of rapport and trust that our constituents, those customers, are put in Mike's responsiveness and both substantive responsiveness and his timely responsiveness is something that I wanted to mention as well. I did want to spend a little time on this Attorney General's office correspondence issue, in part because it's something I want to put in some context. We get so as you can see, if you've read the report, we got this letter on March 5th that said, hey, we've had this what they describe in their words as an investigation open into the commission since they arrived in office in March, because it was apparently waiting for them in December 22nd. So why does this matter? Well, I think it's pretty self-evident that we tried to lay out here I tried to lay out here in neutral terms as I could, the factual history as we understand from our perspective. Because we've gone through some of these things before with other offices, or I really want to first say, so we can sort of reestablish so that folks understand this. Why am I talking about this to you in public? As I get a chance to sit here and the reason for that is not to start some stevedores brawl with the Attorney General's office, but it's because I said at the beginning, because this board actively administrates and enforces the Clean Elections Act and the Voters' Right to Know Act. This is not a absentee board. This is a board that is here at every meeting and intimately involved in the decisions we make. And we have working meetings in public about public matters. And that's because as an institution for the past 20 years, with many of the same staff members as we have now, we have been focused on ensuring that we follow the open meeting law as well as we possibly can, and in addition to other transparency laws. So to boil this down a little bit, the things that sort of stand out as why I plan to seek some outside assistance on how to get my arms around this relationship is, the decision that the Solicitor General's Office Government Accountability Division made about whether or not to keep this case seems to be based on whether or not an attorney gave specific advice, I guess, on the placement of the minutes on our website, but not the role of the AG in advising us on the open meeting law, or in this case, the specific person who filed the complaint. And we haven't been able to identify any formal screen. This is an adverse position, and we weren't given any notice of it. And then, I think problematically, rather than just dismiss the matter because there was no legal violation, the person who wrote this letter thought it was a good idea to take a shot at our website maintenance and our compliance as a quote unquote recommendation. Well, that's not what you do in an enforcement matter, especially when you're already dealing with your own client. And this is complicated because if what this means is that either conflicts don't count when it comes to the Solicitor General's office, or we're not clients when we talk to the Solicitor General's office, and those raise real issues around what's confidential, what's privileged. It implicates the public records law. It implicates discovery. And here, this letter validated a complainant who had already established himself as adverse to the commission and who we had already been advised on dealing with in an open meeting by an attorney for the Attorney General's office. So that's slicing the onion pretty fine. And it doesn't appear that anyone in the Solicitor General's office had a second thought before this letter rolled out. So I think that, we could hear, I'm sure, and I know from past experience with other attorney generals, we often hear something about how complicated the nature of governmental attorneys is. There's all kinds of in and outs and that kind of thing. I don't think this one's that complicated. I think we're the client. I think they're the law firm. And so, like I say, I have an obligation to make these reports the way I do. It's based on 25 years of precedent in this body being transparent about these kind of issues. And so my goal is to get this back on the right track. But, the number of decisions, in a relatively small transaction, the number of decisions that went against the client is a lot. I mean, it's like 5 different decision points there were to get off this train, and at no time did they get off the train. And I think that that's something that we've just got to have some real conversation with them, and I intend to do that. So that's kind of the report. I know that last one may sound a little dramatic, but it's at this point, this is nothing if not ordinary to have a little I don't know what the right word is because I don't know sports metaphors well enough, but between the two agencies. I think we'll work that out. But on this one, the lines are pretty clear. So that concludes my report I believe, unless anybody think I'm missing anything. Anyone want me to keep talking? Mr. Chairman, if you have any questions for me on my report, I'm happy to take those.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Do we have any discussion or questions from members of the commission? Hearing none, we'll move on. Item 4, discussion possible action on 2024 voter education activities, including candidate debates and the voter education guide. We're a few days away from the filing deadline for candidates for the July 30th primary and about a month away from the kickoff of our debate program. Gina Roberts, our voter education director, will have a report on our progress on these projects. Gina?
Good morning, commissioners. Yes, what we have for you today is an overview of where we are. We are knee-deep in preparing for our debates and for the voter education guide. So we thought it would be timely to provide an update to the commission. So I do have some slides just to help me stay on track of our updates. And we'll go ahead and get started with this. First slide, please. Thank you. So our schedule is now public. It is available on our website, and we have our schedule for all of our federal, statewide, and legislative debates that are published. We are working on a handful of county races, and we'll get that information up shortly. Previously, when we were working through the schedule, we did send out save the dates to all of the candidates, so they would be able to have that information as soon as possible and be able to go ahead and get those on their calendar. We will send official invitations out once we know who the final candidates that have qualified for the ballot will be. As the chairman mentioned, we're coming up on the close of the candidate filing period, and that will tell us who the candidates that have filed petitions to qualify for the ballot are. And then, of course, we have our challenge period. And so once we know the final ballot makeup, which will be around April 15th, we'll know for sure who gets an official invite into the Clean Elections debates. And just a reminder, our debates, we will only have them if there's a contested primary. So somebody has to actually be in a contested election, have a competitor in order for us to host the debate. So again, the schedule is available. We do kick off at the beginning of May with our first debates, and voters are able to see that schedule as well on our website. We can go to the next slide, please. So an update on our broadcast debates. So our broadcast debates are going to be our federal and statewide debates. And we, as we had mentioned previously in the voter education report for 2024, we have a new partnership that we are working with Reister and the Arizona Media Association. And so with that comes a new filming location, which will be at Bitfire Studios. That's located in Northern Phoenix, and we were able to take a tour of it, and it is a beautiful facility that is very state of the art. And so with the technology that they have, I'm very excited that I believe we will be able to at least visually create a new and improved debate style. So it should look really well. We're very excited with the tools that are available to us through this new studio. And right now we're in the process of developing our stage design and the graphics that voters will see on screen. As we mentioned, with this partnership with the Arizona Media Association, every media partner in the state of Arizona will have the option to pick up these debates. And so with that, they'll be able to put their own branding on it, but we will always have the Clean Elections logo in there. And so it's a great opportunity to expand reach to the voters of Arizona. In regards to the debate format, this is really exciting too. The Arizona Media Association has put together a steering committee, and it's just really another opportunity to showcase that stakeholders are having their input heard and respected and received by the commission on what these debates should look like. And the format is also being created in conjunction with what the debate work group recommendations were. So what we're looking at right now is editorial control, which will be fully retained by the moderator of the debate. One interesting point too that I think that came up was how we are going to be handling our mics. So during the debates for the broadcast, we will not have hot mics all the time. It would only the person who's speaking will have their mic actually on. So that will help the moderator control the flow of the discussion, and the moderator will ensure that candidates get near equal speaking time, that no one candidate dominates the discussion. We will have some standard time limits in place. We'll have 2 minutes for opening statements, 1 minute for closing. And then each candidate that gets asked a question, they'll have their 2-minute initial response time. And then candidates will also get a 1-minute rebuttal. So again, this format is really derived from those recommendations from the debate work group, but also in consultation with the stakeholder steering committee through the Arizona Media Association, which again, we're talking about our folks here who are journalists across the state, media members, and have a lot of experience in the debate process. We are also currently finalizing our moderator selections. So we put out a call for moderators to folks who have those journalistic backgrounds, and we are working through those selections. We hope to finalize that by the end of this week and get them on board hopefully by early next week. And if with that comes, as I mentioned, every media partner in the state has the option to pick up the debates. So they have all been notified of the schedule. And the broadcast, we are making our progress on ensuring that all broadcasts will include an ASL inbox feed, and we will also have a Spanish feed. So this goes to making sure that the debates are as accessible as possible. Next, we can move on to the next slide, which is an overview of our legislative debates. So our broadcast debates, again, those are going to be available on TV. With our legislative debates, we host those through Zoom, and we stream them through the Clean Elections YouTube channel. However, again, through our partnership with the Arizona Media Association, we will make sure that any media entity that wants to have access to the stream, they will be able to pick it up. We have brought on a debate consultant to help us with our legislative debate process. That is actually Steve Goldstein. He's a very well-known name in the state of Arizona. He has over 25 years of journalist experience. He's award-winning at national and local level. And so Steve has a lot of experience with debates. And in fact, he's moderated some of our debates in the past. And so we were very excited to bring him on to help us coordinate one with the new recommendations of the debate work group, but also one thing I'll talk about in a next slide too is, again, some of the post-debate activities that we'll be implementing to help to continue to push content out to the voters once the debate concludes, but I'll talk about that in the next slide. So we're very excited to bring Steve on board. He will also be hosting our moderator training for us, and we plan to have that done in the middle of April. And for our legislative debates, we also did a call for moderators, and so we're working through finalizing those moderator assignments as well. In addition to a debate consultant, we've also brought on a debate writer that we've used in the past, and this writer is Hank Stevenson with the Arizona Agenda, and he will help us create some stock debate questions. So typically with our debates, we like the questions to come from the voters. We want them to come from the voters, and we ask voters to submit those to us either in advance of the debate, or they can submit them live during the debate actually happening. With that, we also do our issue research, which we've are actually close to wrapping up, and we will have our final report on April 1st for that. And that's where we put out a poll to voters across the state about what issues they think are important and want to hear the candidates talk about. So with all of that content and Hank's background as a journalist, he will develop stock questions for us for the moderators to have in their back pocket, just in case, maybe we have, some quiet voters in a certain district. And so that way we have questions that are prepared and available for the moderator to use that are still reflective of the issues that we know are important to voters in those particular regions. With that, for our legislative debates, we are also finalizing the format. This was perhaps one of the biggest changes to our debate process that came out of the debate work group. This is where we decided to structure our debates by party and by chamber. So essentially we have one legislative event per evening, but within that we have our sub-debates. So we worked through a format and a template for our moderators to follow seamlessly once again to ensure that candidates have near equal speaking time, but that it's also very clear for the voters about who the true competitors are. Our debates, again, on the legislative side, we try to make them as accessible as possible. We will have closed captioning available. And as I mentioned before, with streaming, they will be available for all of our media partners to pick up. We can go to the next slide. So for debates, voter education and outreach. We have these debates, we're working on the production of them. That's one component of it, but how do we get the voters engaged? How do we get them to tune in? And also, how do we ensure that the debates are tailored to the voter, that they're relevant and meaningful to the voter? So as I mentioned, we do that issue research. We have that poll that's out so that we can talk to voters and have a better understanding about, again, what issues do you care about? And we have our moderators who will take that information to help shape and guide the discussion at the debates. We plan on creating subject matter expert videos. So if we hear that water conservation is one of the top issues that voters have identified, then we intend to bring in a water conservation specialist and just create an educational and informational video to further help voters understand what these issues are and how it's currently affecting the state. And that would be, again, just more from an educational standpoint, not necessarily policy as the candidates would discuss. We also plan to do behind the scenes videos of the debate process. That's always interesting content to help capture voters' eyes, and we'll create preview videos as well, where we will be able to, let's say, for example, we'll film Tom talking about, okay, here's this upcoming U.S. Senate debate. Here's what we expect the candidates to talk about and the top issues. And so we'll be able to push that onto social media to help, again, capture the attention of voters and get them interested in watching the debate. We also have our paid media, which we'll push out to let voters know across the state, here's the schedule and here's how you can submit your questions. We're looking at hosting a media day where we'd like to bring in media members to help them understand, here's the debate process, here's how you can cover it, here's how you can be involved, here's how you can attend and be in the media room during our broadcast debates. We also intend to host meetings with the political parties and talk to them about what this new debate season looks like and the rules of engagement for candidates and, again, the top issues voters are talking about. All of this is intended to create that buy-in to the debate process. We also are creating toolkits for the candidates and the voters, toolkits for the candidates so that they can promote their participation in the clean elections debates, and toolkits for voters so they can participate. Avery actually has a meeting coming up where he'll be working with NAU and their student association on how to host a debate watch party. So great things there. I mean, one of the things he mentioned was possibly doing a debate bingo card. So things like that to get people engaged and excited about watching the debates. That's part of our grassroots outreach as well. We are also, as part of the debate work group recommendation, we have a texting service that we'll be piloting. So one of the recommendations was, hey, maybe a voter can just get a quick text message saying, your legislative district debate is tonight, tune in. So we started researching how we could utilize a texting service. We implemented it and started beginning signups for voters. So we will be kicking that off on a soft level to try to get voters educated about the schedule through this texting service. And then another opportunity that we have, and this goes back to what I was mentioning with Steve Goldstein, is our post-debate efforts. So once the debate happens, it's not over. We want these debates to continue to be able to be available for voters up until they cast their ballot. So our schedule has us wrapping up our debates near the start of early voting. But what we want to do, and this is again in alignment with the debate work group, is take that debate content and create bite-sized pieces of information, highlights, social media reels, Instagram reels, if you will, where we can further promote these debates and try to get voters engaged and interested in watching the entire debate. So what we intend to do is after all of our debates conclude, we'll have the moderators come in and Steve will interview them. Steve Goldstein is a podcaster. He has great experience as hosting podcasts and doing interviews. So he will talk to the moderators and talk about, okay, what surprised you, things like that. And then he will also go through the videos and identify those bookmarks for us to take from the debates and create those reels. So we're excited about creating these bite-sized pieces of content that will hopefully drive voters to watch the full debate. And then we're also looking at an opportunity to bring debates into the classroom. So this is an exciting opportunity for us to work with the educator community across the state. As Tom mentioned in the executive director's report, we were at a civics event, and we had the opportunity to talk to a lot of educators, and our table was quite full. We had a lot of folks coming to talk to us both about our debates and our voter education guide, because they find these tools to be very useful for the students in the classroom. They like to get the students engaged in discussion about debates, and also actually flipping through the physical guides to research the candidates, to talk about government, to talk about elections. And so the tools that we are providing for voters, our educators are also finding them very useful. So what we want to offer the opportunity is, we are always available to come out and talk to classrooms, to talk about elections. We can host mock elections, but we can also host mock debates. And then we can work with not just the student government teachers, but also the English teachers and the student council and the debate club, the debate team, to help bring forward these debates. And then another piece here that we have, all in the name of encouraging people to participate in the debate process and utilize these tools, we are looking to create a segment that talks about unforgettable debates and historic moments. So this is where we will look back in history on important debates that have occurred, and again, kind of highlight those and drive home the importance of why debates matter. So this quote here that I have: by embracing debate, individuals can become more adept at navigating complex issues and engaging with diverse perspectives, ultimately contributing to a more informed and understanding world. And this is coming from Oxford. And the intent here is to show that we as humans, we've been debating for our entire lives, going back to historical debates and important events such as, the Athenian democracy in ancient Greece and, the Han Dynasty and Imperial China. We have seen in history how debates, whether they're philosophical or political or religious, debating is a part of our culture, of our history. And so creating this series, it will help again showcase why debates matter, why they're important to not only the candidates, but to the voters, and how they contribute to that informed perspective. So we have a lot going on the voter education and outreach front for debates. We can go to the next slide. I can jump into the voter education guide here, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like, or I can pause for questions on the debate process.
Do we have any questions from commissioners on the debate process? Very, very impressive, Amy. I mean, Gina.
Thank you.
No questions at this point?
I wish I could take credit for all the work Gina's doing and her team.
Okay, Gina, why don't you continue?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, it is pretty aggressive. We like that. So for our voter guide, again, this, I'll remind, the voter education guide is consistently ranked in all of our research where we talk to voters as one of the top tools that voters trust and look forward to and utilize during the election process. So we are constantly looking at ways to make sure that the voter guide continues to remain relevant and important and meaningful for our voters. So we had a kickoff meeting with our process where we met with the United States Postal Service, which is very important to keep them involved in our process. We simply don't want to show up at the post office and drop 2.3 million pieces of mail and say, here you go. So they are a very critical partner to us. And so Paula was able to coordinate a meeting where we had all of our representatives from across the state, because again, we're mailing these across the state. So it's important that we are not just looking at Maricopa County, but all of our counties and how mail is processed. We met with the USPS, we had our print vendor, we had our partners at Reister, we had the Secretary of State's office there. And so it was a very productive meeting where we explained how our process works so that everybody could be kept informed. We have a timeline with them to share with them about when we will stagger drop-offs for our deliveries. And they understand that, again, this is official election mail and prompt delivery is important. So we had great conversations with that. And we've always had a wonderful partnership with the United States Postal Service. So I'm very pleased with that because, again, they appreciate very much the importance of election mail. We had that kickoff meeting, and we are currently in the process of collecting our candidate submissions. So candidates right now are submitting their picture, their profile, all of their information to be printed in the guide. We do have a deadline in place for those submissions. That is April 8th, so that is coming up. Staff will be working and reaching out to all of the candidates that have qualified for the ballot to ensure everybody is represented in the guide. We are also making preparations for all of the different versions of the voter guide that we create, whether that's American Sign Language or our partnership with Sunsounds for an audio version, or the different other languages that we translate them into. We are getting those contracts in place, and we are working to create those translations. That way, again, this election and important voting information, it's not just a one size fits all. We make sure that we provide this in different, very different versions, so we can meet voters where they are and provide them the information they need in a manner that's most comfortable to them. A couple of new things for the voter guide that we had previously hinted at. We are now including an I voted sticker, which is very exciting because we know the I voted sticker is important social currency. And people love stickers. So it's really exciting to be able to offer that into the voter guide. It will be stitched into the center of the guide. This is an example of what the cover will look like. It's not final. We do have some changes to make, but I wanted to give you an idea, a general idea of what it will look like. And as I mentioned before briefly, we are anticipating we'll have approximately 2.3 million pieces that will go out for the primary election. Next slide. So what education and outreach do we do with this? We create the guide, we automatically send it to households with a registered voter. And we have to, of course, let people know that it's available too. So in addition to sending it to every household, we will also do bulk shipments. We will send bulk shipments of the guides to all of our county partners, which is wonderful because they're great about putting them in voting locations. We will send them out to libraries. We will send them out to Native American chapter houses, to post offices that specifically service our Native American communities, because we know sometimes with mail and having non-standard addresses, the post office is a central point for voters to have access to information. We will send them to community centers, to our colleges, our universities, our classrooms, as I mentioned, our schools. And essentially anybody who likes them, who would want them, if they reach out to us, we're happy to ship them a box. We will also employ our paid media tactics where we can let voters to know, hey, check your mailbox or read the guide online. And then we're also looking at reimagining the voter education guide. So we have our standard guide that we will absolutely and always send out in mail, print to the households with registered voters. But again, it's important to make sure the guide is accessible and meet voters where they are and produce content that they are willing to consume in a way that works for them. So one of the things we're looking at are illustrations of kind of a guide to the guide, how to use the guide. And we also want to reach out to our high school and college STEM clubs to maybe take a look at this printed piece of paper. And how would you, as you know, with a STEM background, take this guide and turn it into something more? What would you do and create it in the digital world, or this visual component, kind of like a robotics challenge? So this is something that we felt, again, knowing the feedback that we've received from the educator community and how do they utilize the guide in classrooms. This is another opportunity to get the STEM side involved and again, sort of reimagine what that voter guide would look like. Our first in-home drop for the voter guide is expected to be around June 12th, and our last drop is expected to be June 26th. This is well in advance of the July 3rd early voting period. And we will also continue to push the guide out at grassroots events. So Avery and I will be attending a Celebrate Mesa event or any of our other on-the-ground events that we have coming up. We'll make sure that we have these guides available for community members. All right, next slide. And that's all. So I'm happy to answer any questions regarding our debates, our voter guide. But yes, we are knee deep in working through these things, and the production of both debates and voter guide, but also making sure that people are aware it exists and how they can engage with it.
Thank you very much, Gina. Any questions from members of the commission? Very impressive undertaking. Thank you, Gina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, commissioners.
Item 5 on our agenda, discussion and possible action on advisory opinion 2024-03 relating to the application of the definition of campaign media spending in ARS 16-971 to public communications involving candidates, elected officials, and parties. We have an advisory opinion request filed by an organization called Opportunity Arizona. The questions presented involve the application of 3 definitions of campaign media spending to a particular set of public communications. As you will see in your materials, staff is asking us to allow additional, public comment on this draft ahead of the deadline for responding, which is April 23rd. Tom's going to provide an overview of the issues in the draft, and then we'll take some questions. Tom?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Yeah, so as Chairman Kimball said, and you have in your materials, the email I sent out to the sort of the regulated community list that we have, we are looking for some additional comment on this. I wanted to, say that, part of the thing here is that, we're looking at this, we have to look at this from the perspective of, as it's a statute, right? And it has findings in it, and it has language in it. And obviously there is a First Amendment overlay. And so this is a complicated process, in part because of this is a particularly, this advisory opinion request asks a lot of that process and asks for an evaluation on a lot of different particular communication pieces. But the heart of Prop 211, which is obviously consistent with the First Amendment. Well, it may not be obvious to everyone, but it's obvious under the case law and the First Amendment itself. Is that voters ought to have the ability to have information about who's vying to influence their vote, and they ought to be able to, and we ought to be able to have measures in place that prevent corruption and the appearance of corruption. So, I think that it's important to, as we're looking at this, we are always trying to, understand the regulated community's perspective and get as much information as we can. That's very important to us as staff members in terms of our ability to advise the commission. But it also, at the heart of it, this is the voters passed a disclosure regime consistent with the First Amendment. So that's sort of a premise I wanted to start with. So if we could, Kathy, is that okay to go to the next thing? So what we try to do with this PowerPoint, which hopefully won't take too long, is outline the key provisions that this particular request regards. The first is a provision of 16971 that talks about a publication that promotes, supports, attacks, or opposes a candidate within 6 months preceding an election involving that candidate. And we'll go through in a little bit some examples of that. You'll see in the draft memo that, look, promotes, supports, attacks, or opposes, those are pretty simple terms. We think the language is plain, and in fact, the U.S. Supreme Court precedent on that in the case called McConnell v. FEC says that those terms are in fact, are clear and not vague. The next provision is a provision that deals with a public communication that refers to a clearly identified candidate within 90 days before a primary election until the time of the general election, and that is disseminated in the jurisdiction where the candidate's election is taking place. As you'll see in the letter in the AOR, the part of the question there is, well, does that mean how does that work in there? How should that work? And the Opportunity Arizona's concerns with that. We'll talk about that more generally, or more in a bit. And then finally, activities or public communications that support the election or defeat of candidates of an identified political party or the electoral prospects of an identified political party. So those are the 3 sub-definitions of campaign media spending we're really working with today. So if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I think probably to help deal with this, it'd be better for me to go to the next slide where we start putting these in some context here. So Kathy, if that's... So the first question we got, basically, with there's a number of examples. They're in the letter, the AOR, and they're reproduced in this brief PowerPoint. Or I've heard that if you say PowerPoint, it tags you as a Gen Xer. You're supposed to say deck. But I'm not sure I'm, oh, well, what are you gonna do? Anyways, and like I said, we in our draft, we've sought to apply the plain meaning of those terms. Kathy, if we could go to the next one. So,
Tom, I just learned something new. I think your audience here on the commission is also going to say PowerPoint, but no longer.
well, just so we all know, you know, I mean, I saw a reel about it. So, because I'm a Gen Xer and I get my video shorts from reels. So this first one, this is a example that was included in the AOR. It says, click to send a thanks to a senator for investing in housing affordability. And then it says, visit Opportunity Arizona to learn more. So the letter presumes, for purposes of the analysis, that the Opportunity Arizona is looking for our advisory opinion on that this senator is in fact a candidate, and we are in the 6 months prior to an election involving the candidate. And, you know, the sort of short bottom line, and you can, you know, look more at the text, is that this would promote or support a candidate because it contributes to the growth or prosperity of the candidate. I mean, to boil it down, perhaps even more simply, there's nothing more definitively supporting a candidate than thanking the candidate for supporting an issue. I mean, so, you know, and again, this is time, and it's important, and the draft talks about this. It's time delimited by 6 months, and it's financially, you know, you have to be at the thresholds that are required before the Prop 211 factors in. So, Kathy, so. Similarly, and Mr. Chairman, because I don't always see whatever. If anyone wants, if you want to interrupt me or whatever, just let me know. Or if anyone has questions. So this is sort of the flip side of the thank you. This is the, you know, tell this lawmaker to stop making barriers to voting in Arizona. So, you know, again, we would say, in the draft, we say this is an attack. It's a language to show that you know, in this case, Opportunity Arizona is placed opposed to or opposite the candidate's stance. You know, again, you know, it's sort of the plain meaning of attack. You know, you know, we think that is accurate. So then the next slide, we didn't see a candidate there. So that I guess we can go to the next one pretty easily. Sorry. Okay. So this one is a little different, and we'll get one. There's one more after this example that I think ties together the first two pretty well, but this one's kind of a unique thing. This is a tactic that Opportunity Arizona uses and says that they'll continue to use, called a patch call, where this is where you have a person call a number, person picks up, you ask them essentially, do you want to talk, you know, do you want to tell Senator or Representative so-and-so, you know, whatever you want to tell them about a bill or what have you, you know, that, which the AOR assumes is a public communication. And we take that assumption. You know, it's a direct solicitation to immediately contact the elected officials. So we saw that as not falling within the PASO definition. And then I think the next one, Kathy, if we could. So the next one, you know, this is we do not think in the draft that this promotes, supports, attacks, or opposes a candidate. Doesn't identify the candidate's position on the issue. It simply directs, similar in fact to the patch call. It simply directs the communication to the elected official who is a candidate and says, you know, ask them to tell them to protect our freedom to vote. So you can see the way that we have in the draft, and as I said, my email to the extent I've been able to reach the regulated community And I'll say here again, you know, we are obviously looking for substantive comments on this particular aspect, and that's in part because other than the AOR itself, we received 0 comments about the PASO definition. And the reason I want to highlight that here is because I have been told, either through communications or informal communications and other ways, that whether it's letters from, you know, letters, for example, that the PASO standard is the standard people are very concerned about. That we have understood this from people who purport to represent regulated entities under this act. So if you know, obviously our goal with these advisory opinions is to provide well, first of all, they cabin the commission's discretion going forward. And second of all, they are intended by rule to be reliable. So we would like to have that feedback. And if, you know, and what we can't generate the feedback ourselves. In other words, if this is an issue, as it's been articulated to us over the course of the last few months, then, you know, we would really like, whether people like it or hate it, we would like to hear from them as soon as possible on the draft. So, but you can see, you know, obviously there are under the plain terms of the act and the way that the two advertisements at the beginning juxtaposed with this third, you know, you can see a very obvious bright line between them. It's predictable. It's consistent with the plain terms, and that's why that is what the draft says at this point. So.
Tom, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm not sure I see a huge difference between the ad you have here, call to tell Senator so-and-so to protect our freedom to vote, and the one you used earlier that says click to send a thanks to Senator so-and-so for investing in housing affordability. But you see a difference between those two.
Right. Yeah. Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's a very good question, and actually, I think that's a really the question. So, what do these things have in common? They both have desert vistas. They both are calling for contact to the candidate or the elected official. They both mention issues, right? So in that sense, you know, match. So the difference is that on the one hand, the ad is asking you to express your support to the candidate, and also expressing Opportunity Arizona's support for the candidate's position. The other is not telling you anything about the candidate's position or Opportunity Arizona's position vis-a-vis that candidate. So to me, that's the difference. Is one is saying Senator such and such did a thing Opportunity Arizona likes, express support. The other one is saying, here's an issue. We support the issue, express that to the candidate, right? Or the elected official. So it's, to me, it's the difference between promote, support, attack, and oppose, as opposed to what the Opportunity Arizona folks refer to as actual issue advocacy. So one focuses on the issue, the other one, the subject is truly, the call to action is Opportunity Arizona supports this candidate / elected official, and so should you. Does that answer the question?
Not really.
I mean, that's my okay. Well, this is very important. So I'd like to hear a little more about what.
Well, I don't see much difference between protect our freedom to vote and investing in housing affordability.
Mr. Chairman, Tom?
I think it's clear what Opportunity Arizona wants. They want to protect our freedom to vote. Commissioner Chan?
I think, I don't know if this will be helpful, but to me, the difference is in the one that's on screen where it says, you know, for 30 years, Arizonans have voted by mail. contact this senator to tell her to protect our freedom to vote, without naming which position the senator has taken versus the earlier one where it says, thank this person for voting this way, indicates that the senator, or I don't remember if it was a senator or a representative in the other example, indicates that legislator's position. Tom, is that the distinction between the two?
Yes, that's Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Chan. Yes, the distinction is, so just to put this in terms of the statute says promote, support, attack, or oppose a candidate within 6 months of an election where they're going to appear. Okay, so thank you, Senator X is a for your position on issue X is a direct expression of support for the candidate in relation to the issue, and therefore it is supporting the candidate. Exactly as Commissioner Chan said, these may optically look very similar, and I agree with you, Chairman, that probably Opportunity Arizona's view on this is understood, but the difference is it promote, support, attack a candidate? Here we stipulate that this is a candidate, but we're not calling to thank Senator B for their position on vote by mail or any other thing. We're just saying the issue. We're saying call Senator so and so and tell her you support this issue. The mail, but the plain language of this piece does not take a position upon whether or not Senator B, as opposed to Senator A, is doing good, bad, or indifferent. It's not expressing support for the candidate at all. It doesn't talk about the candidate. It's talking about the issue. So, to me, that's the line. So you can do something that on a surface level looks very similar, but it is the statute that overlays that says promote, support a candidate within 6 months. This one is promoting or supporting something. Obviously, I agree with that. It's promoting or supporting the protection of the freedom to vote. So obviously we have more time on this, and that's part of the reason we wanted, because this is complex, we wanted to build in this additional time for additional comment. But that's sort of it really is in the language. It's what's the object of the communication. I don't know if that's getting closer, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I see a slight difference. I don't know that I see much of a distinction. This seems like this is going to lead to arguments down the line about did we go over this line or not? Because I just don't see a huge difference here that I don't know how else to explain it, but I'm not persuaded that they're that.
That's fair. I mean, I'm Mr. Chairman. I think that's Yes, sorry.
This is Commissioner Payton. I would echo the chairman's position. I think that this kind of opens up a free for all where we're going to be referee for like hundreds of items.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman, if I could go to Commissioner Payton's question first.
Of course.
I think Commissioner Payton, you're right. I mean, the reality is that the act makes the commission the referee of that. That's what we've been asked to do. What we hope to do, and if we aren't there yet, obviously that's part of the issue, and that's part of the reason we are obviously seeking additional feedback about that. So what we're trying to do with this AO is at least provide a sufficient information, to your point, Commissioner Payton, that someone can pick it up and know where they are and this I guess answers both of your questions, Mr. Chairman, know where they are and not have to feel like they have to ask us again, right? That's the goal. So if we're not there, that's the purpose of this extra month, or not extra month. We're still within the rule timeline, but that's the purpose of this discussion. So,
Okay, so you think,
Mr. Oh,
I mean, so you think there is a black and white thing here, and that whereas with us,
right.
we're thinking that's kind of very, very blurry, and I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, and you know, I know that. I mean, if you think there's a distinction, I guess to me, I agree with the chairman that
So that's
I feel like I'm not sure I could justify that little difference, I guess.
well, sure. No, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Payne, I hear what you're saying. I mean, the other way to think about this is, and this would be for your consideration as we move along. Would you think that the line that you would draw would be inclusive, such that this one that is on the screen now would be considered promoting or supporting or opposing or attacking a candidate within 6 months of the election? Or do you think that you would draw the line?
I think they should both be disallowed.
They should both trigger the campaign media spending definition.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well,
Right.
okay. Well, I mean, from my point of view,
I mean, I'm sure they can find another way to try to come up to the line too, I guess. But I understand you've got language that you think is cut and dried, but for us, I guess, a layman,
yeah,
it's really hard to tell the difference. And these people, this is their business, and I see arguments all over that. So
sure. Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Payne, I take that point, and I think that I mean that's part of the reason we wanted to make sure. I mean, what we've done in the past with these other AOs, I just want to just kind of point out where we are procedurally. With the other AOs that were more discreet and focused more on the text of the actual statute and focused on a discrete question, we were able to do this in one meeting without a problem. This one we knew, because of the volume of material that Opportunity Arizona wanted reviewed, and in addition, the fact that we had, like I said, heard to your points, heard that this particular aspect of statute is something people wanted to talk about, and yet received no additional comment about it from anyone in the regulated community, is exactly this. So your questions are precisely highlighting why we're doing it this way. And so I think as staff, I mean, what I take as the direction on that is we need to think about that through those issues and be in a position to have a better answer for both you and Commissioner Kimball. So that would be the direction I take from that.
I mean, I would say that if they're advocating for an issue and they're mentioning the candidate within 6 months of the election, maybe that's a cutoff that's very apparent, right?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Payne, yes, that's right. I mean that if that was the standard, that would be that would be a black letter, bright line, whatever the right term for that. Yes.
Tom,
But
there's a lengthy comment that you've included here from the Campaign Legal Center,
Yeah.
which I read a couple times. And is it possible for you to say what their feelings are on this question that we're talking about now?
As I read their comment, they did not touch this issue at all.
Okay. I mean, their general tone is more things should be covered than fewer.
Yeah, to that point, Mr. Chairman, yeah, I read their comment as focused on the second question, which has to do with the 90-day clearly identified candidate standard. Um, um, uh, Certainly, uh, given our call to have people focus on this specific textual language, that call includes the Campaign Legal Center if they want to provide that, as well as every other person. I mean, I didn't, I reviewed that letter several times, and yeah, I agree with you that both in their prior communications and in this one with respect to the 90-day statute we'll talk about next, they are in favor of more disclosure rather than less. It's not, I mean, obviously, given the context here, I'm not in a position to sort of ask them why they chose to focus on one aspect of the AOR versus another. But, maybe we'll get something from them on this second round, and
Okay.
other people too, hopefully.
Okay, any more comments on this issue before we let Tom move on?
I thought Commissioner Meyer might have had a comment, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Meyer?
Sure. Thank you. I guess going back to the comments that Commissioner Kimball and Commissioner Payton had, and Commissioner Chan, I see the distinction, and I guess, the more time I look at this and spend thinking about this, the greater or the easier it is for me to see that distinction. So I think, as this sort of develops and matures and people are working with this rule, they'll understand that. I think, the first issue, the first slide you showed was, hey, thank your congressperson because they did a great job on this. And then the second one is basically, hey, call your congressperson about this issue. It's not trying to influence them at all. And to me, that's, the more time I spend with this, the more I see that distinction. And so I think, at first it seems, at least to me at first, it seemed like more of a gray area, but the more time I spend thinking about this and hearing you talk about it, it becomes more distinct for me. And I think or hope that that's the impact or the way others reading this would eventually learn to interpret it. And I think that there would be less, confusion than maybe we initially think. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Meyer. That was helpful. Any other comments before we move on? Okay, Tom.
Thank you. Okay, so question 2 focuses on the section of the act that talks about this sort of clearly identified candidate term, which is a term in Title 16, Chapter 6, Article 1, that although we don't, it's the actual definition is not in 6.1. It's a term of art that we think is we're sort of we are bound by case law, and we'll talk about it in a minute. But basically, that this is where we're talking about the kind of an advertisement that would say that would essentially refer to the clearly identified candidate within the 90 days before their election cycle starts, or their election rather. So that this is the kind, we'll go through some of this, but for example, a thing that might not be a promote, support, attack, or oppose a candidate in the 6 months, within the 90 days, that referral to the candidate might kick in. So in other words, if you think about this on a timeline, the two issues, and this is something maybe we need to focus on in the draft a little bit, but if you think about this on a time continuum, prior to 6 months, you're in one space. At 6 months, you're at this PASO standard. At 90 days, when voters are going to be most focused and most interested in how their vote is sought to be influenced and the other values of the campaign finance laws that are there. So you get to 90 days, it's the referral to the clearly identified candidate. So you're going from promote at 6 months to refer at 90 days on that continuum. So
Chairman, Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Meyer?
apologies for interrupting, but I just want to jump in here. So does that mean if we go back to the prior slide that this slide would be treated differently at the 6 month stage as opposed to the 90 days, simply because it has a reference to essentially say call your congressman in it?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Meyer, the statutes are different and use different words for different timeframes. So I'm not sure that I can say, because I can't remember if we actually reached the question whether or not that particular advertisement would be within the 90 days. I'm not sure I'm in a position to say that right now, but I can tell you that there are going to be public communications that at 6 months are not campaign media spending that very well could be at 90 days, because we're capturing a broader set under the terms of the statute, a broader set of public communications at 90 days than we are at 6 months.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Meyer. Okay, Tom.
So trying to anticipate some of the discussion, I wanted to highlight some of Opportunity Arizona's arguments, whether or not, I hope I've captured this with some accuracy, basically their point is a mere reference to the individual should not automatically take a public communication and turn it into a one that refers to a clearly identified candidate. I wonder if that's a quote, because if it's a quote, it's kind of, well, anyways, refer. Anyway, so that essentially is their position. Like, look, if we make a reference to a clearly identified candidate, it should be a reference to a candidate as a candidate. In other words, it should be clearly identified, in their view, should be the, refers to a person as Senator such and such, a candidate for governor, or Senate, that kind of thing that needs to call out, in the view of Opportunity Arizona, the fact of this person's candidacy in order to trigger a campaign media spending event, if you will. And I want to make clear, it's a good time to make it clear, none of this stops anyone from talking. None of this is I've heard in the regulated community the word violate Prop 211 to mean, well, when we have to report. That is to coin a phrase, that is misinformation about what it takes to violate Prop 211. Complying with Prop 211 is not violating Prop 211. And then the other thing Opportunity Arizona says is, look, we want to do what we see as issue advocacy. And if we have to think about whether or not this person is clearly identified as other than labeled by us as a candidate, that's going to be a problem for us. So we could go to the next slide. So that for us, from a staff perspective, our point of view on this is essentially we already have this term defined by case law in Arizona in a case where there was an advertisement involving a person who was running for one office who at that time occupied another office. So the advertisement did not mention the office that person was running for. It only mentioned the office they were currently occupying. And the Court of Appeals, in a case that was reported that's not overruled, basically explained that no, clearly identified candidate means to the information identified actually in 169019, name, photograph, drawing that appears in the identity of the candidates otherwise apparent by unambiguous reference. So what the court said was it's unnecessary for the advertisement to further identify the position being sought. So despite the fact the ad in that case involved a Republican running for Attorney General and only referred to him as a superintendent of public instruction, that was nevertheless a clearly identified candidate. So we think that question of how that should be treated is handled by the case law. If there are, again, since we are soliciting additional comments, if there's reasons why that's not so, obviously that would be helpful to hear. So I don't know if we have anything else on this one. I don't know. Kathy, could we go to the next slide just to see? Okay, so that's all I have on question 2, Mr. Chairman. I'm gonna, with your permission, I'd go on to question 3 or.
Okay, and any questions for Tom on question 2? Okay, go ahead, Tom.
Okay, so question 3 is support the election or defeat of candidates of an identified political party or the electoral prospects of an identified political party. So, in these we have 3 examples we'll go through here, and then we'll have and then we'll talk a little bit more about the pitch call or whatever it is, hatch call. So here, okay, so here we have the question. Really, we understood the question to focus on the electoral prospects of an identified political party. Here on the communication on my left, which I don't know if that's your left, has a headline from salon.com describing, saying Arizona GOP advances voting bills inspired by conspiracy theories. But the call to action there is email the lawmaker or candidate, and so our assessment at this point was that this, so we've already said we think this attacks the senator. Well, we don't see this as being about the electoral prospects of the identified political party, because that headline is there to serve to provide context for the call to action. The second one's a little easier because there's no concurrent candidate mentioning, right? It's just a list of criticisms that are denominated at the Republicans. In case it's not self-evident, Opportunity Arizona seems to tend to favor policies of one party over the other. But then if you read through all the language and you take it together, it is driving people to find out about the Republican legislature from Opportunity Arizona. So, so our thought on that was, well, again, is it to get to the electoral prospects of the Republican legislature, you have to do 2 steps, not 1, right? There's 2 steps. There's a step of you have to first join Opportunity Arizona, and then they're going to find more. Now, you might say, well, tax breaks for private jet owners, giveaways for big business, and rigging the system for the elite are obviously critical of the policies of whatever party you're using those kinds of terms to refer to. But in this particular case, we think that the context matters, and the call to action here is to become a member or get information from Opportunity Arizona. That may ultimately mean that you get information from Opportunity Arizona or someone else that is supporting or defeating the electoral prospects of an identified party. But this is the invitation to that, and I think when we saw in the draft, we saw a distinction there. Again, open to additional comment. So then, Kathy, if we could, then on the next slide, we do the patch call. And again, we think that because this although there's a reference to party, we maintain the same point of view as we had on the other matter that this was evaluated under, which is this is a narrow form of communication directly to a person who picks up the phone at the office of the elected official. So I think that is I think that is all we have. Yeah, that is all we have on those. So anyway, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if there are additional questions on these at this point. I'm happy to try to answer those.
Well, I just wanted to clarify one point. So the ad with the salon headline would be covered. The tax breaks for private jet owners would not.
We think the ad with the salon headline would be covered because of the reference to the candidate, not because of the reference to Republicans.
Right.
Yeah.
But the tax breaks for private jet owners would not be covered.
Yes, it could be if it had different language, but the language
But
there,
as it stands here.
Yeah.
And the patch call would not be covered.
correct.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions, comments from commissioners? Boy, I feel like we're wading through some pretty tall legal grass here.
Well, Mr. Chairman, yeah, I mean that's exactly right. I mean this is a like I said, this is a hefty request that and that's part of the reason why we wanted to break this into a couple of different meetings to talk about it. But the best we can do, and our hope in as we go forward here, is to be in a position to have a process that will ultimately lead to some answers that folks can rely on. That's what the rule talks about. And then secondly, I think that I'm hopeful that folks, and there are some folks who don't appear but do listen to our meetings on YouTube and other places, will see that the commission is engaged specifically in analyzing the text of this act and its application. And I think that from my perspective as a staff member, this is precisely the kind of conversation you want to have to do this. So yes, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the preparation all of you obviously put into understanding this to have these questions ready.
So any other questions, comments from commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question for Tom.
Commissioner
Based on the questions raised by some of the commissioners, Tom, and your comments regarding taking more time, should we vote on this as a commission today? Do we need to wait and see if others from the regulated community are going to weigh in? I feel like time is of the essence because of the elections coming, but.
Right. So, Mr. Chairman, if I may,
yes, yeah.
two points on that. Number one, we have a deadline imposed on the rule imposes on us of either issuing an opinion or explaining why we're not issuing an opinion of April 23rd. We're currently scheduled to meet on April 18th. Staff's recommendation is to at least request to have in order to allow us to process it and work with it, to have additional written comments due by April 5th. And staff's further recommendation is that the commission formalize that in a vote, that the commission formally vote to request additional written comments between now and April 5th.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, in that case, I would move that the commission officially seek additional comment on this draft advisory opinion, or the advisory opinion request prior to by April 5th.
By April 5th. Thank you. Is there a second to Commissioner Chan's motion?
It's Payton, yes, I'll second that.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we'll take additional comment through April 5th on these matters. I'll call the roll. Commissioner Chan?
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer?
Aye.
Commissioner Payton?
Aye.
Commissioner Tidla?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. The motion's approved 5-0. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, commissioners. Item 6. Commissioners, you all should have the chance to review the dates that Paula has proposed for our future meetings. Just to be clear, they are April 18th, May 30th, June 27th, July 25th, and August 29th. Is there any discussion on this? If not, I'll motion to approve these meeting dates.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the meeting dates, the proposed meeting dates.
Thank you, Commissioner Chan. Is there a second?
This is Peyton. I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Payton. It's been moved and seconded that these meeting dates be approved. I'll call the roll. Commissioner Chan,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Payton,
Aye.
Commissioner Titla.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The meeting dates are approved 5-0. Item 7, public comment. This is the time for consideration of comments and suggestions from the public. Action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter or rescheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date or responding to criticism. Please limit your comment to no more than 2 minutes. Does any member of the public wish to make comments at this time, or does any member of the public on Zoom wish to make a comment? I don't see anyone. Kathy, are you aware of anyone?
There are not any members of the public.
Okay, thank you. The public may also send comments to the commission by email at ccec@azcleanelections.gov. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Thank you, Commissioner Chan. Is there a second?
I'll second.
This is Peyton.
Thank you, Commissioner Meyer, for the second. I will call the roll on the motion to adjourn. Commissioner Chan,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Payton,
Aye.
Commissioner Tidla.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.